15 minutes to go, right?
15 seconds. 15
seconds to go. Okay.
Murthy ji, Ishan.
Namaste, Mr. Arvind ji. How are you?
All fine, Murthy ji. All fine. Pleasure
Good to see you again.
Thank you. So, Ishan Anand, pleasure to see you here too.
Namaste, sir.
Pranam.
Yes, Murthy sir.
Yep.
On the count of 3, we go live. 1,
Okay.
2, 3.
Hello, everyone, and a very good afternoon to all of you. My name is Murthy Bhotla, and I'm the founder of iMaker. It's a technology startup based out of San Ramon. And I would like to welcome today to all of you to this webinar, which is focused AYUSH, building entrepreneurship and strengthening startups. So being a startup, I'm eagerly looking forward to hearing from the esteemed speakers that we have today here. I'm sure a lot of people are also interested to learn, what can be done and some of the context that we will lay down here about how do we actually grow. And some of the speakers that we have today here are already established in their respective fields. So this is being organized by Federation of Indian Chambers and Commerce Industry, and in association with NASIA and Indian Vaidyas. Now, this webinar is also part of an expo or a series that is being held right now. It started on the 23rd of November, which is the Fishy Global Health and Hygiene Expo, and will continue till the 26th of November. Now, the expo by itself is a very, very popular event, which is connecting all the industry stakeholders, visitors, delegates, and all the audiences through a live expo, conferences, B2B meetings, product displays, and a lot of attraction for audiences from various spheres of life. So the focus theme of the expo has been healthcare. And considering that AYUSH by itself is a very key and important subsector of healthcare system in India, and is also growing very well outside India, this webinar is an initiative to bring the emphasis on the AYUSH industry and developing this particular sector to support the healthcare delivery system, not just in India, outside India as well. So as you're aware, right now we're in the midst of a very strong pandemic, which has been around for over a year. And AYUSH has supported the healthcare system in India through bringing immunity boosting solutions, also by managing the infection and by providing us cure and post-restorative care. So this has actually put a lot of emphasis on the AYUSH manufacturing industry itself to bring up quality-based, clinically approved, and standardized medicines and products to the market, since it's being very, very closely monitored, especially during this time. And we have also heard about some of the key initiatives with India being established as a center of complementary medicine by WHO. So there's a lot of recognition, a lot of focus right now in India in terms of where we are taking this, given this opportunity. So having said that, I would like to introduce our panelists here. So we have Mr. Arvind Varchaswi. He is the Managing Director of Sri Sri Tattva and is also the co-chair for Fishy AYUSH Committee. Welcome, Mr. Arvind. And we also have Mr. Madhusudan Chauhan, and he's the Director with Jiva Ayurveda. Welcome, Mr. Madhusudan.
Namaskar. Thank you, Murthy ji. Thank you.
Sure. And we have Dr. P. Ramanohar, a very well-known research director from Amrita School of Ayurveda. He's joining us as well. Welcome, Dr. Ramanohar.
Namaste.
And Dr. Sanchit Sharma, a young entrepreneur by himself, is the director at AMIC, and it's a pleasure to have him here as part of the panel as well. Welcome, Dr. Sanchit.
Yeah, namaskar everyone. Thank you for inviting me as a speaker. Thanks a lot.
And finally, we have Dr. Aisha Nainal, who's the director of Ayurveda Essence, and she's joined us as well. So welcome, Dr. Aisha.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Welcome. So on behalf of Fishy, it's actually, I'm looking forward to this discussion, being a startup myself, as I said earlier. And I would like to extend a very warm welcome again to all the speakers. So before we actually start the conversation, a few items that I think will be important for the attendees to know. One is you can actually submit your questions in the chat window on the chat box that you can see. And we will be taking these questions at the end of the session. So you can submit them at any point of time, but at the end of the discussion, conversation, we'll take up some of these questions. Now, to start the conversation, we will break down the entire conversation into a couple of areas. One is obviously we touched upon the entrepreneurship and the focus that India has. So what we will do is we will start looking at why do you think, right? So why do we need entrepreneurship? Why have a conversation around that at this point of time? Is it because of the pandemic, or is it in general that it is time for healthcare to move and grow from where it is and also adapt to the newer areas of Ayurveda that are emerging and being recognized the world over? So first question to you, Mr. Arvind, why do you think strengthening entrepreneurship and supporting new businesses is extremely important for Ayush? And is it, I mean, you can also talk in line to the current pandemic that we have right now.
Thank you so much, Murthy. Always a pleasure to be here on the panel, and my regards, to you and also to the entire panelists, and also wishing my panelists and also the viewers the best of health during these very tough times the entire world is going through. Having said that, as what you mentioned now, that there is a lot of scope for entrepreneurship in this segment to date. Particularly post the pandemic, where per se the entire economy was perhaps put on like a reset button worldwide, and everybody had to innovate, everybody had to see that what's relevant in today's time, and that per se are the very fundamentals of the spirit of entrepreneurship, saying that you look at what really is required by the entire economy, you look at what is really required by the people today. And today, if you were to see that the pandemic, one thing that it's really taught us is to have a healthy lifestyle. We all see that there's a whole race for a vaccine. There have been all systems of medicine, going through, whether it's the AYUSH systems or whether it's the allopathic systems. So every system of medicine has been looking at a sort of a, cure or perhaps a solution to this entire pandemic. But at the same time, it's important we also attend to the lifestyle of one's, daily routine. That's where the entire AYUSH systems, from time immemorial, from more than 5,000 years, have prescribed clean methodologies as to what you need to do to live a healthy lifestyle. So entrepreneurs would definitely see that there's a lot of scope in terms of educating the population and also bringing the systems of medicine across to people in a more palatable form. What's really different over the last decade is that there's a lot of technology that's come into this sector. A lot of research has happened over the last decade. You've seen many research reports coming in. One data point that's also important for all startups over here is that more than 50 to 60% of the clinical trials that have been registered here in the country belong to the AYUSH systems, and that's something very encouraging to see. So having said this, there's a lot of scope for entrepreneurs coming in right from from the farm to fork model, whether you would like to work with farmers, you'd like to bring in quality raw material, whether you'd like to get into the aspect of supply chain to see that how the quality raw materials and also semi-finished products reach factories in a particular quality and also the quantities that what is required, or even get into manufacturing where you have CGMP and WHO GMP standards where you manufacture. So if you were to look at Sri Tattva to date, we send our products across to 56 countries. Our our factories are WHO CGMP COPP certified. We have all the relevant certificates that what you would require to export Ayurveda's medicines to certain countries. And especially during this pandemic, there's been a lot of interest from different countries to get Ayurveda recognized as a system of medicine in their own countries. So if you were to ask me that whether there's scope for startups to come into this particular sector, yes, there's a lot of scope, and entrepreneurs would definitely find it very interesting to see that the more they dive into this particular science, there are so many wonderful aspects of the lifestyle that what people need to live by, one gets educated on. So I think, yeah, Mr. Murthy, so that would be my answer to that.
Thank you, Mr. Arvind. So you talked about, there's a lot of scope, and Mr. Madhusudan, I think your organization has been one of those successful startups, earlier on. And uh, when we discussed about, how Jiva came about, it has been one of the most successful stories, starting from a very small startup to where it is now. It's a well-recognized name across the globe. It's more like a synonym for Ayurveda in India, wherever you go outside India. So given that, I mean, do you also feel that it is important for startups to succeed? If the startups were to succeed, is it important that it also needs a lot of support from the center or at the grassroots? I mean, we're talking about, Mr. Arvind was touching about exporting products to 56 countries. And today, Ayurveda, when we talk about it, it's not just in India, but it's also outside. So where do you think, a lot of that support needs to come from? Does it need to come from the center or the grassroots levels, from the villages or the districts or the cities themselves, or the states themselves?
Yes. Thank you, Murthy, and thank you, Fiki, for having me on the panel. It's always great to be amongst the stalwarts of Ayurveda and share ideas, no matter where the panel is and who's on the panel. And thank you, Murthy, for those kind words. I think you were overreaching when you mentioned, but thank you anyways. Um, See, I think a very interesting thing is entrepreneurship and business are two different things, right? Business as usual is separate, and then entrepreneurship is different. And what defines entrepreneurship from the business as usual is a lot of times with entrepreneurship, you associate a high degree of innovativeness, a high degree of challenging the status quo of how things are to be done, and that's why we regard ourselves as always in a startup mode, because at Jiva, we're always thinking, how do we innovate further to reach out to the patient? We did the world's first online clinic back in 1995, and then we did telemedicine back in 2002, before the Amazons or Flipkarts of the world had come in to deliver door to door. We were delivering personalized medicines to patients at their doorsteps, with the doctor consulting to them over video or over telephone. So one of the key elements always remains that there is entrepreneurs are always willing and wanting to innovate and challenge the status quo. And what that brings along with it is a high degree of risk, because when you're trying to do something new, which has not been tested, which has not been done before, or you're trying to change the entire environment or the way a product or a service is being consumed, it comes with a high degree of risk along with it, which is where the support system, the ecosystem takes a big shape. Arvindji was just mentioning, and I think we are extremely fortunate to be in the period that we are in at the moment in Ayurveda, because especially 2010 onwards, world over, there has been a built and a very strong movement towards wholesomeness, holisticness, natural well-being, uh, going beyond just popping a pill sort of healthcare, and that was building up. What the pandemic has done, is that it has forced us to sit back and think. We were on in a lockdown for 2 months, 3 months, and when people were in the houses, everything that they were running around for 6 days a week, 7 days a week, had come to a halt. They really had time to introspect and think of what is important in life. So I call it a black swan moment for Ayurveda, wherein this had to come. Ayurveda had to reach this stage. It's just that because of the pandemic and the situation that the global population is in today, we've seen it uh, preponed. So what probably would have taken us another 5 to 6 years is starting to happen now, and that is a great moment for entrepreneurs, because the opportunities are endless. Right from agriculture to manufacturing to products to services, within services, in treatment care, in therapeutic care, in wellness care, in preventive care, in animal care, even to a large extent, I think the lifestyle or the way of life philosophy of Ayurveda renders itself extremely important in the food and nutrition space. And then there is an entire category of Ayurveda inspired businesses, I am seeing a lot of activity happen and some very interesting ideas. Somebody is applying artificial intelligence to sports medicine with Ayurveda, and that's just an extremely cutting edge example of how Ayurveda's elements are being taken, applied with something that's so unconventional in Ayurveda, and yet they're making a model of service around it. So the support in that sense from the government is definitely, it is unquestionable. It is for sure, it has to come at not just at the center level or at the state level, but at across the value chain. Thankfully, for the last 6 years, we have a dedicated ministry which has been pushing this agenda forward, not just in India, but globally. We can see the changes that are coming along, and I'm sure we are just getting started here, and there is a long way to go ahead. However, I think the larger question is, and I've always believed this, that things like adoption of Ayurveda will always be people's movement, right? The governments can for sure support it. The right policies can increase the speed at which it happens. However, when there is an adoption, there is a movement at a consumer level that is unstoppable. And that's what entrepreneurs should also focus on, in the sense that ensuring that they're connecting with who they're serving well and educating them, making them aware, making them understand why to choose Ayurveda. And once you've done that, it's almost to say that the governments and the policymakers will have to sit up and take notice and make those relevant changes. All in all, I think a great time to be in Ayurveda, to be doing Ayurveda.
Thanks, Madhusudanji. So it was interesting, I mean, to hear first from Mr. Arvind, which is where we heard about, exporting to a large global audience. And then we heard about how Jiva grew and how it's been on the forefront of telemedicine right from the 90s itself, that we are hearing now as mainstream. But having said that, I mean, Dr. Sanchit, as a young leader, do you feel that a lot of other youth or young people can be motivated to come and pick up entrepreneurship, given that it still requires a lot of push from the center government, and also a lot of international collaboration is required, as Mr. Madhusudan was talking about. So, what would it take for the youth to come and jump into this field and build the next, maybe the unicorn for Ayurveda? I mean, we've had a few unicorns in India, as Ola or Big Basket or others. But in the Ayurveda sector, do you foresee that that's likely to happen? And what would it take for the youth to come and do that? Mr. Sanchit, that is for you. I don't think we can hear you. So, Mr. Sanchit, while you fix it, I think I'll probably take the next question in the sense that I'll definitely be looking forward to hear from you about about the youth. But at the same time, I would probably pose a question to Dr. Ramanohar in the sense that what kind of initiatives do we need to push people into this sector, right? So, I mean, it's also a question given that you're so well known for the retaining the authenticity of Ayurveda, while entrepreneurship is in a way also driven towards, I use the word unicorn because people typically tend to associate a startup with a lot of returns down the road. But having said that, how do we make sure that the authenticity in the traditional medicine is also retained while we are developing such initiatives for Ayush?
Yes, I mean, I would like to refer to Sushruta's, vision of an Ayurvedic physician. When he defines who an Ayurvedic physician should be, he uses the word Swayam Kriti, that is an innovator. This is quite fascinating to see this concept coming right from the classical text. Drishtadhigata, Tattvaadhigata Shastrartho Drishtakarma Swayam Kriti. Because Ayurveda is a knowledge system that is, three-tier. You have the Tattva, Shastra, and Vyavahar. That is, there are those fundamental principles that we say form the core of Ayurvedic system. And there is a theoretical modeling, and then the possibility of infinite applications. So, because Ayurveda has been designed for application over, large, for the vast time frame, chronological and, temporal time frames, the whole process that drives the development of Ayurveda is innovation. That is, there are these timeless principles and they need to be reinvented time and again according to the place and time. That is the only way Ayurveda can move forward. So, this is the idea that the Ayurvedic text itself says. And it is actually time. I mean, this is the only way that Ayurveda can reinvent itself is by promoting this spirit of innovation. And that has actually to be kindled in the process of education itself. Today, if Ayurveda should meet to the present needs, it has to find this Swayam Krititva. Every physician has to kindle that spirit of innovation, where this Tattva and Shastra of Ayurveda, which we say is the framework, which is not so changing. I mean, these are fundamental principles. But when it comes to the scope of its application, and the classical texts also say this Yuganurupa Sandarbha, that is, according to the yuga, you have to create a new innovation that will make this knowledge meet the needs of the people. So I think we need all these other support. We need the governmental support. We need the environment. But entrepreneurship is self-driven. I mean, it is not something we can bring from outside. And if the Ayush sector needs to really take off in the entrepreneurship mode, then I think we must focus on education. Even at the student level, this fortunately in today's educational system, we look at, when we say authentic, we think that it is being rigid and fixed to some traditional practices that makes Ayurveda authentic. But that's not the idea in the tradition itself. The idea is how you make it relevant to the time and place without compromising the principles. And that idea of innovation should be the spirit behind entrepreneurship in Ayurveda. So while we need all these external supports and all that, I think it should go into education. We must expose the students to these ideas, even in the course. There should be, additional components that kindle even relationship collaborations with industry. I mean, students should be encouraged to come with these novel ideas, and industry should innovate and encourage them to, come up with these novel initiatives. So I think I would like to bring it to that level in the education itself, because research is also a field where there is tremendously this demand for new innovation, even in a research methodology. How do we present Ayurveda before the world today? We have been struggling with research methodologies that are imposed on Ayurveda from Western medicine. I was myself involved in a clinical trial which was funded by NIH, but where we completely tweaked the study design and made it suitable for Ayurveda. And this helped us to actually, make that dive into a very high impact journal, into the American College of Rheumatology. So I think that innovation, that spirit of innovation, is there within the tradition, and the tradition is very much, in tune with this idea of innovation and entrepreneurship. This is mentioned, of course, in a traditional context, but I think we must really capitalize on that. And for that, we need to get into the grassroots of Ayurvedic education and career building. So these are some of my thoughts. I'm really glad to be part of this panel with these distinguished, and experienced experts. And I wish everybody good luck and the whole economy. I think Ministry of Ayush has also put this as a vision that, the Ayush sector being with boosting entrepreneurship. There are some schemes from the Ministry of Ayush also recently that this India's growth as an economic superpower. I mean, traditional medical systems like Ayush definitely have a big role to play. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ramanohar. So you were talking about, it was interesting to know that it's a continuous innovation that's happening, and that's part of Ayurveda. So coming back to Dr. Sanchit, I mean, how do you, I think I was talking about how do we bring this to the youth. So how do we make it look like cool to them, right? So in that sense, people typically tend to go, and how do we attract young leaders to come and say that, I'm actually looking forward to investing or starting a business in this space. So what would it take to motivate some of them?
Yeah. Thank you, Murthy sir, for the introduction, and thank you, Vicky, for providing the opportunity to speak in front of all the guest speakers, and a warm thank you for the opportunity provided. So, as the question is that we have to, the youth has to come in. As we know that it is currently it is a $10 billion market, the Ayush industry, which is standing as of now, and in the next 5 years, it is going to grow by 50%. It is what is expected, and what I feel is this is the best time to invest into the Ayush sector, and the young entrepreneurs can be invited. And basically, we have to do that as a at a very young stage, basically from the schools and then the universities. And the universities are going to play a very big role, because when we are deciding to which field we are going to go in, and once we are graduating, and after the graduation is just completed, I think there we need to conduct some knowledge sessions, maybe collaborating with some universities, which are the top universities of the country, and then there, if we are showing them the future, I think from there we can take it ahead. And because as we know that after the COVID, everybody wants to switch to the natural remedies. Everybody wants to switch to the Ayush remedies, and we have seen that it has shown a very good spike in the sales. And I think everybody mentioned it, like what we were going to see next 5 years, maybe we are going to see next 2 years. So it has this COVID times has basically improved the switching towards the Ayush sector. And I think, but I think there are few challenges also. The two challenges, which is, then when we're talking about startups, we can show them the future. There's a big huge market which we can cater to. And Arvind ji also mentioned about the scope into the wellness sector. Maybe it is a nutritional sector, maybe it is a therapeutic sector, maybe it is a clinics. There are a lot of scope which is there, but every startup needs financial support. And I think that has to come from the ministry. And recently, I think Ministry of Ayush has signed an MOU with the with MSME, which supports the new startups. I think 1 or 2 months back they have signed an MOU also. And from there, I think, but I think there is no clear cut strategy. But they have signed an MOU, but we don't know what the basic uh, agenda is. And the long term startup roadmap is somehow, I think, which is missing. The financial support, which is very important when we are going to start a startup, everybody needs that. So I think somewhere Ministry of Ayush and MSME needs to come together and have some lucrative uh, agendas or policies which can lure the youth, and they can come in and start a business, because people are having good ideas. And this industry is having a good scope. But I think one is financial support. Second is the insufficiency of talent, which I think that although the skilled personnel is they are available, but I think they come at a cost. So startups can't afford that thing. So I think the skilled person are also required. Maybe it is in the digital marketing, maybe it is in the offline marketing, or maybe it is in the technical segment where doctors are required, Ayurvedic doctors are required. So I still feel who are skilled, they are paid very well, and startups can't afford. So these are the two major points which I think we need to focus on. First is the financial support that startups require, and second is the talent and skilled people that we require. When we are talking about the IU sector, we know there is a huge scope which is in front of us, but I think we need to uplift that thing. And also one thing that the if we are adopting Ayush, if we are adopting Ayurveda, Unani, or Siddha, or any other system, it has to start at the school level. Basically, still we are lacking. I think somehow awareness is not that much. Although the Prime Minister of the country is itself is promoting Ayush and everything is there, but still I think we lack the confidence is not there, which is there in the Chinese traditional system of medicine. They are having a lot of confidence in their system, but somehow our own population doesn't believe in that. I think we need to start adopting that thing, and that has to start from the level of a school, where when the child is growing, we need to educate them. We need to educate about our system, about our age old system that was there, and that is very important. Otherwise everything will be coming to us from the western world, which is still going on. We are following the western system. Like, as we all know, curcumin is a major example. Curcumin came to us from the west, and although it is our own thing, and we have been trying it for ages, and still, but our own Indian population needs modernization. So what I would like to share is that we have also launched one, just launched Ayurveda, which is Ayurveda for a youthful you. And what we did is, all the consultants told me that you should have a packaging which is reflecting Ayurveda. It should be traditional. It should be having a brown bottle or something which shows a traditional look. But I said no. I want to catch the youth, and I want to present Ayurveda in a modern way, because everybody they have been doing it like that, कि एक वो पेड़ के नीचे या कोई मतलब जो है हमारे वेद बैठे हैं, वेदास बैठे हैं, and they are meditating or something like that, or a spa or a massage center. In the West, Ayurveda को इसी तरीके से we have been seeing, they have been perceiving it like that, it is just a massage or a spa or a wellness thing, not as a therapeutic thing. So this is, I think, where we can work upon. So I decided that we want to present in a modern way. So all the product pack, it looks modern, it looks different, which is going to catch the youth. So if we are giving the youth, they want what they want in their own way, then I think we can win the race. And I think if we are talking about startups, we need to start that at the school and the universities level. I think Ministry of AYUSH should collaborate with some ministry, some universities, and there we can conduct some sessions. And there we can, when the student is just starting off, after the graduation, then they have a lot of ideas are pouring in. And then if there we can show them the potential of the market, I think we are going to have a lot of young leaders in the Ayush sector.
Thank you, Dr. Sanchit. So, I mean, you touched upon one of the areas in terms of the monetary aspect, the funding, or the VC kind of a culture that needs to come in to promote the youth. But I'm sure, Dr. Aisha, you have setting up your center. I mean, there could be a lot of other challenges that you must have faced. So what are the other challenges that you think the industry has that the entrepreneurs are facing today? And, some thoughts on how did you overcome some of them?
Sir, talking about startup, we started with our company in 2008. And when you are really new to the business, and you have to start with scratch. So talking about first about the regulations. Now, for any manufacturing company, they need to have licenses from FDA. So the problem started from there, because in Maharashtra, if you will see the norms or the licenses for the product coming under Ayurvedic proprietary medicine or cosmetic are entirely different from what it is there in North. Giving an example of, like, initially in the face wash, for example, we started manufacturing face wash, and then the FDA, they proclaimed that you cannot put it Ayurvedic proprietary medicine, though the formulation was completely Ayurvedic. Whereas we had given the example of some MNC companies where Hindustan Liver and the other companies, they were selling the product under the Ayurvedic proprietary medicine. But then they said in Maharashtra it cannot be given. So that was the starting problem. Now, even if you will see, the other problem is now with the soaps. If you manufacture soap in Solan, you get it under the section of Ayurvedic proprietary medicine. Whereas if I'm manufacturing soaps in Maharashtra, it goes under cosmetic. The FDA of Maharashtra doesn't allow that. So there is no uniformity in the rules. So for FDA, which is the licensing authority for any manufacturer, I think so. If we being all the citizens of one country, we should get a uniformity in the licensing authority. From that, if whether I'm manufacturing in Maharashtra or in Uttarakhand, the licenses should be same for the product category. So that was one challenge. The other challenge was that we have a product called as Pratiloma, which is based on the Ayurvedic Lom Shatan concept, that perpetually removing the hair. So that product which we have developed, it has a depilatory action, but it is not an instant hair removing cream. So FDA Maharashtra, when I went there for the licensing, they said we cannot give you under Ayurvedic proprietary medicine. I said, so why? The concept is completely Ayurvedic, and it is not like an fringe of wheat that it is immediately removing the hair. It is a perpetual thing. It has a medicinal effect. So they said no, the action is depilatory. So we cannot provide you under Ayurvedic proprietary medicine or Ayurvedic medicine. It will go under cosmetic. So these are few challenges that we are facing while manufacturing in Maharashtra. And this might happen. I don't know what are the FDA norms or FDA rules on in the other parts of the country. Everybody who is running a business definitely would be facing some or the other legalities in terms of getting the licenses.
Sure. So, having said that, I mean, you talked about the different states and different issues that are coming in. So, going back to Mr. Madhusudan, I mean, you also face, given that you have your products across different states. How do you overcome these challenges? I mean, this could be a little confusing for a new entrepreneur, right? So, how do we bring this kind of a mindset, and what is the recommendation that you would give to somebody like who's a new entrant? And maybe I'd also go, as a follow up, I'd probably go to Mr. Arvind also as a follow up and ask him what are the do's and don'ts that they would recommend for a new entrepreneur to come in. So sorry for combining the two questions, but I thought they were interrelated, given that you both have been very, very successful and large brands in India. And I'm sure that you face these challenges. There are two challenges that we talked about. One is the financial support that came from Dr. Sanjay, and then the diversity in India itself in terms of products. So I'll start with Mr. Madhusudan with you, and then maybe we'll go with Mr. Arvind's thoughts on that. You're on mute, Mr. Madhusudan. You're on mute.
I'm sorry. So one challenge that does come is because Ayurveda, and I say Ayurveda is not one industry. Ayurveda is a mega industry. It's got many different things within it. So within products, there is a category of personal care, beauty care products, which are also called Ayurvedic products. Then there is health and well-being (OTC) kind of products, and then there is medicinal products. And I strongly feel that, and within beauty care and the healthcare product range, there are still two kinds of products. One which are 100% Ayurvedically formulated, and then there are certain products which have some amount of, say, a cream base or a shampoo base, or one of the non-Ayurvedic ingredients are being attached to it for making the format of the product more convenient to be used, along with some Ayurvedic ingredients. So I think each one of these four different category of products needs to be looked at differently. And this is something we've also recommended at a policy level. See, when you come to the medicine and health OTC range, there we would want more and more rigorous trials, testings to be done so as to ensure that the quality, safety, and efficacy, especially for the patented products in Ayurveda, has to establish a standard, a quality standard, a safety standard, which must become mandatory and rigorous. In absence of which, Ayurveda, the industry has also faced flack because some substandard products will be introduced, or there will be products introduced which have not passed the rigor of safety quality standards that it should have gone through. Whereas on the other end of the spectrum, when we are referring to certain personal care or beauty care products, their regulations would need to be framed a little differently. Um, so I think one of the challenges comes when we look at all these four different kinds of products from single lens. They need to be divided and looked at from different lenses. What we've proposed in certain instances is there should be Ayurvedic products and Ayurveda inspired products, so that even from a consumer perspective, a lot of times a certain product carrying only 2% Ayurveda ingredient passes off along as an Ayurvedic product. Now that creates a question, could create a question or a doubt in the consumer's mind as to how is a herbal shampoo different from an Ayurvedic shampoo. Or if somebody does make a 100% Ayurvedically formulated product, how is that different from something that only carries 2 or 3% Ayurveda ingredient? So even from a consumer's perspective, there should be a clear distinction made as per the regulation, which says that these are purely Ayurvedic products, 100% Ayurveda formulated, and these are Ayurveda inspired products. So I think that distinction will help a lot in to the consumer as well, and on the back end when we are creating the regulations and the formulations as well. That having said that, the challenges that Dr. Aisha has enumerated, I'm sure, because there is state to state variation, and each state controls a certain amount of regulations the way they want to impose in their states. There would be for sure differences, and I'm sure that's something we should have under the consideration of the central ministry to coordinate with the state departments, the state ministries to address that. So, that would be my
Sure.
input on it.
Thanks, Madhusudanji. So, Mr. Arvind, just to repeat, because I think I mixed two questions, just to summarize that, and also I think we've had a good discussion so far. What is your recommendation, given that you're one of the big names, the do's and don'ts for entrepreneurs who are looking to get into this? I mean, at least 5 things that we can talk about it. That will be helpful to people who are looking to get into this.
See, yeah, that's very nice. Do's and don'ts. Perhaps I'll make it as a 5-mark question. So, if I were to actually bring it across in terms of points, saying that what you need to do is that carve out a niche for yourself, saying that which is the space you would like to be, whether it's in terms of products or whether it's in terms of services. The entire AYUSH sector relies equally on both. Unlike other systems of medicine that might be more product specific, here the medicines are very heavily dependent on the doctors, because the systems of medicine are very personalized, customized. So what might work for you would not work for me. So it's important that you identify which is the niche that what you would like to be in. Another thing is that what I feel that we need to do is that when you're a startup, you take as much as what you can. You eat as much as what you can chew. So of course, it's good to have big aspirations, but you start step by step. You need to build yourself into a particular, a vertical or a particular space that what you could own. So that's number 2. Number 3 is that I feel it's important that you use your finances properly. You focus on products and services that you feel that you could champion. You need to ensure that, and number 4, ensure that whatever you do it with quality. Do not compromise on quality. Ensure that once you give something across to your consumer, you need to have that recall value, and that's something only quality and an experience would bring across. This goes across both to the product and the service. So when a customer has your product, whether they're happy with the efficacy and the quality behind the product, and the experience in the product is that how it's packaged, how does it actually come to the consumer, what is the story behind your product. And when it comes to the service aspect, you need to ensure that there's an aspect of the patient feeling homely. The person has to feel comfortable. Another data point is that a whole lot of the diseases in today's world are also psychosomatic. So the moment you start, believing that you're sick, then automatically your body and mind start to do that. So this is something that what Ayurveda has championed from time immemorial. So these are some things that what I feel that we need to do. What we don't do is that we don't rely too much on government subsidies, or that's not how you build a business plan. Yes, you go and see what are the subsidies that are there with the government, but when it comes to running a business cannot only run on a subsidy. You need to have a business plan. You need to be able to defend your financials and also the products that what you're coming across with. Another don't is that there is no shortcut to coming up. Ensure that you do your business with ethics. So don't do unethical practices. So there's another thing that what the government has come across very strongly is that making unsubstantiated claims. So this is something that what the government has come very heavily on, and I encourage all entrepreneurs not to get into this, claiming part where there is no substantial proof. Now there are bad apples in every system of medicine. It's just not only in the AYUSH. It's there even in the allopathic sector. It's not for us to simply pick and point across what these things are. So I think more or less, Mutiji, these are the do's and don'ts that what I would feel. And yeah, the sky's the limit in this particular stream right now. So yeah, I would definitely invite a whole lot of entrepreneurs to come in and get into this particular field. Quality raw material is something that what the industry would definitely have challenges in the coming year, especially past 2030. So that's a space that where I think entrepreneurs can really do something very great. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Arvindji. So finally, I think, what it kind of, the context was that there are a lot of opportunities. There is a significant amount of opportunities, and it's the right time. So Dr. Ramanohar, the one final last question is, I mean, how do we fill the gaps to, create these entrepreneurship skills inside this industry? I mean, what are your thoughts being in this space for so long? Dr. Ramanohar, you're on mute, I think.
Am I audible now?
Yes, you are. Thank you.
Yeah. I think I hinted upon this when I responded to the first question itself, that, we need to nurture this from within the community itself, and that, this has to basically start with the educational process itself. And we shouldn't be relying only on, these external facilitation, and it has to happen from within the community itself. And I think skill development is extremely important, because in the field of Ayurveda, we do see this, and the Ministry of AYUSH has also identified this as a problem, that, people are moving away from their core competencies. I mean, if Ayurveda has to really succeed in this field, we need to build core competencies. And that is a major concern. I mean, how do we focus on this? Real innovation, real entrepreneurship cannot happen if that particular discipline or profession is not able to, strengthen its training system, so that people come with confidence in their field, and they are able to convert that into, applications that will create an impact in society. So there, I think in Ayurveda, we need to really focus on many areas. Quality assurance of medicines. In ideas alone does not work. We need all the materials, all the quality processes in place in order to come up with a solution that will actually make an impact. So there are many gaps there. Infrastructural facilities that are underutilized, sensitization, training, all these things are needed. So I think these are some of my thoughts on what are the gaps that needs to be filled.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Ramanohar. And thanks, everybody, for your viewpoints. I think it was a very interesting conversation. I think we are just too short to take any questions at this point of time. So I would recommend that you please send your questions to ayush.fishy@fishy.com, ayush.ficci@ficci.com. And thank you so much for attending the questions, and we'll be happy to respond back to your questions via email. Thanks again.
Thank you. Namaskar.
Thank you. Namaskar.
Thank you, Mr. Murthy. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.